Good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing today? Good? How'd you like the keynote this morning? Was it good? Awesome. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Łukasz Pawłowski. I'm a program manager on the Power BI team, and I'm responsible for a number of areas. Today, I'm going to speak with you about how you can take Power BI and distribute that content beyond just the walls of your organization. And that's going to empower you to move more quickly to make sure everyone in the organization and outside has the data they need to work collaboratively. I'm going to start with a couple of slides, talk about why this is important and how it fits, and then we'll go do a bunch of demos to show you how those various pieces fit together, and then we'll close out with a couple of key learnings. So the first thing to know is that when we talk about this space of sharing data external to your organization, we actually look to organizations like Gartner, and what they actually say is that those organizations that can share data both internally with everyone who's responsible, but also externally with everyone surrounding your organization, they're going to reap the benefits of enabling that fast data movement and that fast collaboration. And this is actually what brings us as Power BI to actually leverage some capabilities that the Azure team has been building at the identity level, which is called Azure AD B2B. And what that does is it makes it super easy for you as an administrator or as a user to share securely in a governed and principled way data from within your organization externally to those constituents who need access to it. Now, when we think about external data, we sort of say, well, who are these external people I need to be collaborating with? Well, there's a number of different cases. And when you look at many organizational structures, there's a parent company, right? And a bunch of affiliate or subsidiaries. And the parent needs to give access to all of those organizations they've either acquired, right, or grew because of regulatory requirements, access to standardized data. This is incredibly common in things like insurance or franchising, right? Or in a lot of retail places where like brands are buying out each other in order to go build up the actual final entity, which is the organization that we see. We work a lot with consultants and contractors. I've heard horror stories where someone hires a contractor and then it takes the contractor a week to get provisioned with all the licensing and access and all that stuff. And that's paid time. That contractor is saying, wait a second, you hired me for a 2-week engagement, you wasted a week, but that's billable time for me, right? So enabling that fast motion. And then strategic partners. It turns out in many industries, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's healthcare, you name it, what's actually happening is there are providers of facilities, for example, and then there's providers of services. So in a typical hospital scenario, you might imagine there's a hospital that has an operating room. But there's 100 surgeons, each with their own independent practice, that need the ability to see analytics of how they're doing when they're operating in that room. Well, this kind of capability gives you quick and easy, secure ways to give that data and analytics out to those core constituents in a very easy to manage way. Now, recently, when we started this, we started with consumption-only experiences. I could give you access to a report or an app or a dashboard, but you could just view it. Now, what we've also done is we've extended to the full range of collaboration, meaning I can actually give external partners the ability to contribute content back into my Power BI environment, where I own it, I maintain it, they can't run away with it. It's actually really compelling. We'll talk about some of those things. But before we do, I really wanted to spend a couple of seconds talking in more detail about Azure AD B2B. Because when we talk about enabling external users to access content in Power BI, it's two parts. One is the identity management and governance pieces that are provided by Azure AD B2B, and then the collaboration and content experiences that Power BI provides. And so it's super important that as you start this journey, you understand that Azure AD B2B allows you to do all of the identity pieces. I'll talk in more detail later about what that is, but ultimately AD knows who the user is, lets you manage can they access your tenant, lets you choose who in your organization can or cannot add external users, and so forth. Gives you all the auditing, logging, and management interfaces, and I'll show you some of those here in a second. Power BI also provides some experiences around this. But it's also important to understand that when a guest user, an AAD B2B guest user comes into your organization, they're part of your organization. Traditionally, what would happen is an organization would give that contractor, for example, an account, right? And that account would be one of your accounts, and then you would just secure access. So once a guest has been added to your account, and someone in AAD land, right, the AAD administrator has decided that person should be part of a security group, if you add that security group to a Power BI report, they're going to have access, right? So we don't have to understand these things work together. In Power BI, you get some options to turn that off and configure that, and I'll show you what those are here in a second. So with that, let's go do a demo. And the basic scenario here is I am like a hospital, for example, a managed service provider, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give access to a particular customer. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in as Adam at the measured product, and I'm going to give access to me, Łukasz at Microsoft, to a particular piece of content. So how do we actually go do that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the demo, and we're going to start here in Power BI. Who's a user of Power BI already? Yes. Keep your hands up if you've played with the B2B stuff. Okay, great. So a lot of new folks. I'm happy to entertain detailed questions as well from the more folks who played with it. So now to build a BI portal in Power BI, we get to choose how do we do that. But typically what we do is we just go and we build an app. And an app is an easy way to package content from many reports and dashboards into a single package that's easy to use and access. And in this case, I'm going to use this vehicle sales app. Okay? This app may look different to the apps that you've used. We recently shipped a new way of creating apps that's much nicer. There's this whole session tomorrow on this. I go into it for 20 minutes, and I'll also cover it later on in a session about enterprise reporting today. The goal, though, is I want to get an external user to have access to this. So what I'm going to do is the following. I'm just going to press the edit button, and that's going to take me to the workspace that this app came from. Now, in order to publish an app, who has published an app before in Power BI? Okay, oh wow, so not that many of you. So it's interesting. So Power BI allows you to curate content and work together as a team to build up the reports and dashboards and data sets that are important to you in a workspace. And that's where I am right now. And what I can actually do is I can go and press this button. If you've never published an app from your workspace, it says Publish App. If you have, it says Update App. And so I'm just going to go ahead and press it. And it shows the app creation experience. And there's some setup experience things and some navigation things I'm not going to go into. For this session, where the magic happens is here on the permissions. Importantly, what I can do is I can specify who has access to this app. By default, anyone who's a user of the workspace that I created the app from has access. But I can give access to other people. For external users, I have to explicitly give them access. So you notice that I have this entire organization here and specific individuals. For external users, you can't use entire organization. And that's just a way that we try to prevent you from accidentally leaking data to users you didn't expect. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type in my alias. This is my Microsoft email account. And you'll notice here that this came up as Łukasz P, Microsoft, EXT, the measured product.onmicrosoft.com. That's a very long-winded way of saying that I'm adding an external user to this app. So when I do that, the next thing that I can do is I can just go press Update App. Now, I have published a BI portal to my external user. So if I'm that hospital trying to get into surgeons' hands the analytics for the operating room, I'm actually right there. All I have to do is copy this URL, and give it to that external user. So let's go take a look at what that looks like. So here I am in a different browser window, and I'm actually logged in here as myself. And you'll notice that when I open that URL, it's actually going to go install the app and give me access. Okay? Like that. It took 2 or 3 seconds for this to happen. Now, a couple of things I skipped along the way. I'll go back and cover them. But ultimately, me as a surgeon now, I can access this app, look at all the content that's in here, do all the things that I would normally do to make my business decisions on top of that data. Now, let's rewind a little bit. What actually happened along the way? What actually happened was, if you went into Azure AAD, who's used Azure AAD Portal before? Okay, it's just portal.azure.com is the core URL. So you can kind of see it here in the portal.azure.com. And if I go into the users tab here, and I search on guest users, and then what I do is I type in my alias, and you'll see that wukashp@microsoft.com is a guest user. Okay? They got there because someone invited me. And I can either invite using what's called a planned invite, so I can use this experience in AAD or a PowerShell script. Or if I had not been already in the system when I typed wukashp@microsoft.com in Power BI, if it's enabled, we'll send an invite. So the user gets invited. Now, what does that look like? Now, for the sake of this demo, I just created a little fake inbox here. And what you'll notice is this is an example. So Adam Wilson at the measured product invited me to vehicle sales. If I click that link and I've never come in before, I go through an onboarding process. It says, hey, this measured product company wants you to add yourself to their AAD. Would you like to do that? Here's some privacy information. If I accept as an end user, then I'm added as a guest user in the AAD. Okay? The next thing I can do here in AAD is I can actually control some of these things. So obviously I can select the user and delete them. That would be terrible for this demo, so I won't do that. But I can also, if I come back into Azure AD, under user settings here, I can actually do a set of management operations. It's a little hidden. It's manage external collaboration settings. But if I click that, what comes up is this little experience where I can control a number of things. I can control what access guest users have to my directory information. What that means is, can they actually find out that some other user is part of my directory or not? By default, this is off. And that's great in most circumstances. When we get into more advanced capabilities, like the edit and manage capability I'll show you in a little bit, we want to turn it to set it to no, because that will limit those experiences. But I can also choose who can invite, how they can invite. You can even do things like at the bottom of the screen here, you can deny specific domains from being invited. So there's a ton of control, and there's way more when you look at the documentation for this. So great. So now at this point, what I've achieved is I've built my BI portal, and I've shared it with my external user. So with that, let's hop back into the slide deck and continue on. So the next thing that I want to talk about is, while that was a read-only experience, maybe if I have a consultant working for me, I actually want them to come into my Power BI and make the reports for me or for my team. How can I actually do that? Well, we have a new capability called Edit and Manage that allows users of Power BI to give external users this ability. And it requires a Power BI admin to change a setting. And once that happens, that user can access home, they can access workspaces, they can create and publish content, they can even use gateways that you've configured for those users and given them permission to. They can't do certain things, though. They can't install gateways, right? They can't set credentials on gateways. And today, they can't use Power BI Desktop to publish directly, Analyze in Excel, and a few others. That being said, they can accomplish that creation task all in the web, or they can upload a Power BI Desktop file using our web UI. So let's go take a look at what this looks like. So great. So now I'm back in my tenant, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to go to a workspace. So carefully named B2B demo. I guess it's not here. So let's go create a B2B demo workspace. Perfect. So now I've created a workspace, and what I can do is I can go and add some content to it. Let's go do that real quick. How about IT spend? Perfect. So now I'm in the demo environment. And there's a dashboard, a report, a data set, and so forth here. Now what I want to do is I want to give that user, right, the Wukashp, the ability to edit and manage content. There's two pieces, right? You'll notice here that I can give access, but I can't do that yet. The first thing I need to do is I need to go to the gear here. I need to go to the admin portal. And in the admin portal, I get to control some tenant settings. So let's go down here. And with this setting, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down here. By the way, here's where you can manage whether you can invite external users within Power BI. But if you scroll down here, there's this other very alluring setting, which is the principle of this demo, which is allow external guest users to edit and manage content. I've set it very permissively, but typically you would set it using a security group, okay? And so what that means now is that when I'm back in my demo workspace, what I can do is I can go into this access blade over here, and I can give Łukasz P at Microsoft, and here I am, the right to edit content in my workspace, just like that, right? I can actually go and change Łukasz, and I can give him real good rights. I can make him an admin of this workspace. And so now if I've outsourced IT or outsourced BI development to an external user, I can have them be the administrator, let them manage security for me because I have them under contract. All the data stays inside my Power BI, inside my organization, so it's secure and managed. I have full visibility as a Power BI admin to the audit logs, see what this person's doing, and so forth. But that person is free to move forward with the analytics that my team needs without any kind of overhead. And it's a very powerful and compelling experience. So now that I've done this, how does Łukasz get access to this content? Well, this is great. What I do is I come under the question mark icon here in the top. If I go to About Power BI, you'll notice a very handy little URL down here. If I just copy this URL, okay, this is newly added, this URL has a bunch of metadata on the end of it, which is your organization identifier. And so now, when I come back into my other browser window, and what I do is I just go click on that. Now I'm logged in as Łukasz P again. Look at this. I see home. I see workspaces. I can see the B2B demo. Here I am. And I can go into a report, edit the report, change a visual, whatever I want to do, save, share, and so forth. And in this way, I've taken out all the overhead of sending them an invite to sign up for a new user account in my organization, managing the password of that new user account, doing all the licensing provisioning for that user account, all that stuff. Now I have a person able to contribute in my organization. So great. So with that, let's jump back out. We have a couple of other things that we've done in this space. It's important not only to have access to data in the web, but it's also important to have access in the mobile apps. And what we've actually done, let's see if this plays, is we've actually enabled the ability for external users who click on a link in an email they receive. So whenever we share something in Power BI, we send you an email. If you're an external user, you click that in mobile Outlook, it'll open up our Power BI mobile apps, and you'll go through this experience, right? If you were watching, it signed me in as a guest, it took me to another organization, I can browse the content. It's a pretty fantastic capability. The next thing that we do is we make it incredibly easy, along with Azure AD, to ensure that you never have to manage credentials for these B2B users again. And there's great integration if the external organization is already using AAD, but we're adding soon the ability to do direct federation so that if you have other identity providers, not AAD, there's a seamless experience. That's work that in progress by the Azure AAD B2B team. Already, we support something called Onetime Passcodes. So you can actually send to someone who doesn't have an AAD account or one of these more managed accounts, and they'll get an email that says, hey, enter this passcode in order to sign in, and then it becomes fully secure again. So we're just taking all the trouble out of enabling this kind of collaboration. The next thing that you should think about is how do you actually empower all of these users? And what this is about having a simple, consistent licensing model that makes it easy. And luckily, this is where Power BI has really gone out of the way. What we've done is first off, if you've put the content in a Power BI premium capacity, it just works for that user. But we've done more. If you're trying to enable this user to edit and manage, well, not only can you assign a license in Power BI, in your Power BI, and pay for it on behalf of that user, if that user already has a Power BI license in their Power BI, as many consultants would or many partners would, they can redeem that license in your organization and get its benefits if you've given them the permissions to edit content. So you don't have to pay for pro users who already have a license twice. It's amazing. It makes it so much faster to go deliver this as a solution. And of course, you can always assign them a license. It's a few little tips and tricks for you as we close out. The first one is, I already mentioned during the demo, but it's really, really important. In the Azure AD external collaboration settings, they've locked down directory access. So if you go into the sharing UI and you try to type someone's name, if this is set to yes, this one here is set to yes, what happens is the user can't see anything. And so it's not going to be very good for editing and managing content. So you wanted to set it to no. There's different ways in which you can do the invites. You can do them ad hoc just by typing someone's email address and sending an invite. But for larger deployments, when you're doing partnerships and so forth, you really do want to do what's called a planned invite. And what that means is that you're using either the Azure AD portal to invite everyone, you're using or some PowerShell scripts. You might also be doing things like setting up a security group, so all those users are in one security group, and then setting that security group to have access to Power BI. So you don't have to keep adding individual users, and just you reduce your own management costs over time. You can invite external users through all of our collaboration experiences, which are sharing and app access, so I can share a dashboard or share a report. We did not enable that for workspaces. So the person has to already be a guest user in your AAD in order to be added to the guest workspaces. And the last thing is, before you can use the user in access lists, you do need to make sure they accept the invite first. Okay, so they're going to get an invite. If they haven't accepted, they're going to be in the invited state in AAD. You want them to be in the guest state before that happens. So with that, I hope I've quite quickly gone through how quickly and easily you can build BI portals, share them with external users. We covered two major scenarios. One where you're like a hospital, where you have many, many service providers and you're providing a facility, and you can distribute that data out to all the individual medical providers' offices. Another scenario is where I had a consultant needed to come in and help me build my BI content in my Power BI while I retain that data. Again, I was able to use the edit and manage capability of Power BI to accomplish that. We have a really verbose white paper. It's something like 40 or 50 pages long that covers everything I talked about today in a lot more detail. So I highly recommend you take a screenshot of that URL and read it in detail. So with that, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming to MBAS and joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your conference. And I'll take questions here up front at the end. Thank you. Oh yeah, and evaluate the session, please.